Hello and welcome to episode 172 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. In honor of Gay Pride Month, we would like to feature authors who are in the LGBTQ community. Enjoy. I'm Ann Dark.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
A podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
The first book I have is Shadow Sand by friend of the show, Robert Bryndza. It's published by Thomas and Mercer. He put out a book last year called 9 Elms, which we featured on episode 97 in January of 2020. If you haven't read that book, it's not a prerequisite, but it would be helpful because you'll know who your characters are.
I loved that book.
Yes, it was a good read.
Yes, it was.
And so is this one. Kate Marshall is continuing her story. She was featured in 9 Elms. She and her son go on a scuba diving trip to the Shadow Sands area. Apparently it's a moorland area that's covered with water, and she and her son go scuba diving there. Well, they find the body of a teenage boy tangled up in the vegetation. The victim is just one of a series of mysterious deaths and disappearances that are linked to that area. Kate, of course, is looking into the murderer. She is now a lecturer at the university. She is the one who caught the 9 Elms killer, who just happened to be her lover at the time, father of her son. In continuation of that story, Jake is living with his grandparents. Kate just needed to regroup. And he comes to her and says that he would like to visit his father in prison.
Uh-oh. That didn't go over well, I'm sure.
It doesn't go over too well because Peter, her ex-lover, refuses to see Jake unless she comes along.
Dun, dun, dun.
This also goes into the problem of Tristan, her assistant. Tristan is still with her. He goes on a date. His date never showed up, and there's another disappearance. It all wraps up together. Robert does an excellent job. He twists and turns the plot, but you know where you are. You know who you're with through the whole story. It is just a very well done suspense thriller. It's a page turner, all right.
I can't wait to read it.
Kate has to deal with Peter Conway. This takes every bit of strength she has. She has to demystify Peter Conway for her own sanity and for Jake's.
Yeah,
So
that's tough.
It is tough. He knows what his father did. Peter's also spinning a tale.
I absolutely loved the storyline in 9 Elms. I thought it was so clever and unique. It was just something I had never thought of before. Like, what would happen if a police officer is that connected to a serial killer?
Right. And a victim of the serial killer also.
Yeah.
She became very close to being his next victim. Now, the one person who is not in this story is the mother.
Well,
I think she's in prison somewhere. She was a piece of work. I highly recommend this book. Robert is, I would say, one of my favorite authors for suspense. He can weave a tale You have to follow that trail until you find the answer. Because
Well, I remember during the interview he talked about the second installment in this series, and I was very intrigued.
Robert Bryndza is an international best-selling author. He's best known for his page-turning crime, which have sold over 4 million copies in the English language. Robert was born in Lowestoft on the east coast of England. Now, I probably pronounced that horribly, so my apologies. He studied at Aberystwyth University and the Guildford School of Acting and was an actor for several years. He didn't find any success until he took a play he had written to the Edinburgh Art Festival. This led to his decision to change careers and start writing. He self-published a best-selling series of romantic comic novels before switching to writing crime. Robert lives with his husband in Slovakia and is lucky enough to write full-time. You can find more about Robert and his books at robertbryndza.com.
My book is called Scarlet Fever by Rita Mae Brown. It's number 12 in the Sister Jane series. Sister Jane Arnold hopes to play matchmaker, but winds up playing detective when hunting season kicks off with a murder in a riveting mystery from the best-selling author of Homeward Hound. Every fall, the start of hunting season brings crowds of people to Tattenhall Station. Sister Jane Arnold has long served the proud master of the fox hunt for the Jefferson Hunt, but this year she noticed a new phenomenon. The men in their hunting scarlets are having an amorous effect on the women of the club. Delighted, she sets her mind to playing matchmaker, but the joys of hunting season are cut short when a body is discovered. When the death from illness, as everyone, including Sister Jane, is led to assume, she isn't so sure. And soon, with the help of hunters, horses, foxes, and hounds, she uncovers a nefarious scam involving the inheritance, turning the seemingly innocuous death into a murder. This book was published by Ballantine Books in 2019. It's number 12 in the Sister Jane series, and there has been another one since 2019. It is called Out of Hounds, and that came out in 2020. It looks like she puts one of these out about every fall, so I would assume the 14th in the series will probably be out this fall.
Is she a nun?
No. From what I gather from reading this, I think that's what she's called. I think she's, because in the book, they never call her Jane. They just call her sister.
That's a Southern thing.
I think it is. She sure didn't act like a nun, so we'll just put it that way.
All right. That sounds good.
When we decide to do these, what we're reading, I always kind of like to challenge myself. I have read all of the Mrs. Murphy series by Rita Mae Brown.
I love that series.
But I had never read any of the Sister Jane series. So I thought, you know what? Let me give that a try. I was a little apprehensive about jumping into the middle of a series when there were so many past installments. It really was not a problem. It only took me about 3 chapters to really get into everything about Sister Jane and her group of fox hunters. Now, when I say fox hunting, it is the no-kill version that the United States practices.
Okay. I am totally against the old-fashioned fox hunt.
Yes, there is no kill.
Okay. They still scare the poor thing to death.
But just like in her Mrs. Murphy series, she loves to have her animals be able to be all-encompassing as far as the series goes. Everybody talks. I'm talking anywhere from birds to foxes, horses, hounds. Everybody's got a voice in this book.
It's not a bad thing.
No, it actually was kind of clever, and it gave the story a whole nother dimension that you just really didn't think about. You're looking at it from the fox's point of view.
I loved Mrs. Murphy's series.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
It was our grandmother's too, right?
Oh, yes, she loved them. Every time that a new one came out, we'd have to either get it to her or she would run out and buy one.
We're Rita May fans from way back, but just not this series. Now, I didn't know anything technical about fox hunting when I picked up this book. And I can say that I almost feel like I'm an expert now. You can tell that Rita Mae Brown is a fox hunter extraordinaire, obviously. She loves this sport. And part of the reason I know that, I listened to this book. What a delight that I got to listen to a book that was actually read by the author herself.
Oh, she read it.
Yeah, and it paid off so well. She is so passionate. It just shines through in her voice and how she's describing. She almost giggles in some of it. She's just so happy. This book actually dealt with kind of a dark topic. It dealt with elder abuse and dementia, but in true cozy fashion, it wasn't a deep dive, but it was there. And it was sad that it had to be experienced. You don't have to worry about it, depressing you or anything, because it's a cozy. If you get a chance, try to do the audiobook. Rita Mae just really so passionate about her story. Who knows it better than her?
True.
And she truly shines a light into each person's life and even the animals. She's passionate about them too. Rita Mae Brown, born November 28, 1944, is an American feminist writer, best known for her coming-of-age autobiographical novel, Ruby Fruit Jungle. Brown was active in a number of civil rights campaigns, but tended to feud with the leaders over the marginalizing of lesbians within the feminist groups. Brown received the Pioneer Award for Lifetime Achievement of the Lambda Literary Award 2015. If you want to learn more about Rita Mae and her books, her website is ritamaybrownbooks.com.
Well, her books have always been a little bright light. I have always loved Rita Mae Brown's Mrs. Murphy series ever since day one. She has this talent. I know there are some people who do not like animals that show a personality of their own, but she has been doing this for years. It works. She's
the master of it. I really do believe she is. Some people make an animal talk and you're like, oh.
No.
If I read a Rita Mae book and it wasn't in there, I'd be like, what?
Yeah. Forget this one. Put on something else. My next book is Still Life by Val McDermid. This is published by Atlantic Monthly Press. It is number 6 in her DCI Karen Peary series. It finds her investigating the shadowy world of forgery, where things are never as it seems. A lobster fisherman discovers a dead body in Scotland's Firth of Forth. I know I don't have the accent for it. It's a body of water. They pull this body out of the ocean. They find a wallet and his identification. He is identified as a young man from Paris. They can't figure out how he died. In the meantime, Karen Peary is called by a woman.
Is this part of a series?
It's number 6 in her Karen Peary series. That's P-I-R-I-E, so I don't know how you would pronounce that. A woman's sister died in an automobile accident. And, well, her sister, who was left, had to go to her house and clean it out and give her things away or whatever, get the house ready to sell. When she goes to the garage, she sees in the back there's an old car there with a tarp over it. When she pulls the tarp up,
I can just imagine.
There's a body. It looks like the body has been there for 10 years at least. It's covered up with a tarp. Nobody knows who it is. Nobody knows who the car belonged to. It wasn't registered to